We'll get into the entire poll and react to that coming up after we talk to Zac Blackerby. After Zac as well, we'll have a big announcement about the show. The first of many coming up.
Oh, yeah. Zach's going to help us with that in a little bit. He is with us right now. You can find him on the Locked On Auburn podcast at Z Blackerby on Twitter is where you follow him. He is with us now on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Zach, what is up?
Gentlemen, happy Monday to all of you. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Let's start with over the weekend. You guys had a chance to talk to a lot of the coaches and the players and all of that. I saw reports coming from Auburn that it looked like Payton Thorne at the 1, Holden Geriner at the 2, and Robbie Ashford at the 3. If that is true, is that surprising to you?
It is surprising. It is surprising because, we heard Hugh talk about this up in Nashville at SEC Media Days. He got 10 days to get it from 3 quarterbacks to 2, and we all assumed that was him kind of saying the nice way of like, we'll give Holden Geriner a shot, and then we'll see what happens after that. But no, it seems like Payton Thorne is getting the most snaps with the 1s, and then Holden Geriner is getting reps also with the 1s, and then Robbie's coming in and getting reps with the 2s. So, yeah, did not have that on my bingo card entering Auburn's fall camp.
Payton Thorne's got a ton of experience, and he is a guy that won 11 games 2 years ago, but last year, very inconsistent. What are reports out of camp on Payton right now?
Yeah, talked to somebody who is in the program yesterday, tell me about Payton Thorne. And he said the most impressive thing to him was whenever Payton Thorne does something good and whenever Payton Thorne does something bad, he responds the exact same way. He's very poised. He's very focused and locked in to what he's doing on the field. So I think that's something Auburn hasn't had in a long time. Even last year, I think the emotions of Robbie Ashford were definitely a story, probably too much of a story than they needed to be, but they certainly were things that were talked about. Same with Bo Nix. Guys are 18, 19, 20 years old. They're going to get emotional on the sidelines, but it will be a nice change of pace, assuming Payton Thorne is the starter, to not kind of see all this major overreaction one way or the other whenever something happens on Auburn's offense. So that seems to be the biggest takeaway early, and just the attention to detail. He's coming at this from a professional point of view. He's been playing college football longer than these other guys have, and other guys in this locker room, based on the conversations I've had, they're taking notice.
This hour of the show brought to you, as always, by our friends at Champy's Chicken, Highway 119 in Alabaster. Sterling and the crew there, champy'schicken.com. Zach, when you change the roster, like they have changed with the portal at Auburn, we've seen it work at TCU last year, Michigan State a couple of years ago. It's been a disaster before, like it was at Miami last year. So it's a coin flip. What's your feeling about the newcomers so far? How does the coaching staff feel about all the new guys they brought in and how are they starting to mesh together?
Yeah, over 40 new guys on this roster that weren't here 365 days ago. Pretty amazing. As far as, I don't know, I think it varies by position, right? I think you look at the offensive line and it makes sense. When you look at wide receiver, though, all of a sudden it's like, I don't know how in the world they're going to figure out what this wide receiver rotation needs to look like. And a lot of these newcomers in the wide receiver room weren't even here for spring. And so, they go out and get Shane Hooks from Jackson State, and they go out and get Jair Shorter from North Texas, Caleb Burton from Ohio State. And they're all kind of in the two deep. They're all with the twos right now, with your starters being Nick Mardner, who's another transfer from Cincinnati, came in December. But that's the room that I think is going to be the biggest question mark for Auburn going into the season. And then everything else, I think it kind of makes sense. Everything else, they went out and got pieces, not necessarily an entire group that needs to start. Like they got depth on the defensive front. They got depth with linebacker with some of these guys having the chance to start after spring practice. And then the defensive back room, they kind of left the same. So I think a lot of it makes sense. But the wide receiver room is the room to me that I think is the most tricky when you look at these new transfers.
Zac Blackerby is with us. Stay tuned at the end. We're going to tell you a little bit more about Zac. Locked On Auburn is where you can find him at Z Blackerby on Twitter. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. This Jarquez Hunter situation continues to be a bit mysterious. Anytime Hugh talks about it, basically it's in the vaguest of terms. I don't know that you have a gut feeling on how it's going to play out or information on how people feel like it's going to play out. Do you have any of that on Jarquez Hunter, which would, at this moment, you would have to say is a big missing piece in the Auburn offense?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a million different things, guys. Originally going to fall camp, I predicted that he would be out there day one. And obviously that wasn't the case. And now rumors are starting to heat up a little bit more. I don't know if that's justified or not. I wouldn't be shocked if he missed a game or two. I have a hard time buying the fact that he's going to miss an entire season. Of course, that's what some people have said that they've heard. I don't buy that for a second. But if you told me he missed 3 games and then was conveniently back when Auburn heads to College Station to take on Texas A&M, that wouldn't shock me.
Without Hunter, though, who are the playmakers on this offense?
Yeah, Damari Austin's a guy that saw a few reps last year. He was kind of the number 3 guy behind Jarquez and obviously Tank Bigsby. They went in and brought in Brian Batty, who is one of the best kick returners in college football a year ago from South Florida, as kind of a change of pace back. Kind of think of maybe a more shifty and slightly slower Sean Shivers that we saw in this Auburn offense a few years ago. And then one of the best running backs in high school football last year from Montgomery Catholic, Jeremiah Cobb, who I was a little concerned about him missing time in spring because he didn't enroll until the start of summer, but he showed up to camp a little bit bigger than a lot of people thought. And in fact, I have a hard time telling the difference between Damari Austin and Jeremiah Cobb when they've opened up, those first 30 minutes of practice to allow the media to watch. So I think both of those guys could be a really solid 1-2 punch. And then you've got Brian Batty as the change of pace back. I think that could work until Jarquez Hunter gets back.
Play calling, Hugh Freeze he's turning it over. He'll have a role and everything. We loved Hugh's play calling at Ole Miss, even at Liberty. What can you make of that relationship? It's not as much talked about as say the one at Texas A&M, but it seems like Hugh and Coach Montgomery, they're in a good place on how they're going to do this.
Yeah, well, I think at Auburn they're being a little bit more transparent with it. I think at Texas A&M they're trying to be secretive about it and not doing a good job with being secretive about it. But yeah, and we'll talk to Philip Montgomery. We'll hear from him in a few minutes actually, and it'll be cool to hear his thoughts on how the offense is going. But I don't think we really know what a combination of the Hugh Freeze style of offense and the Philip Montgomery style of offense looks like. You got to think it's going to be spread. You got to think there's going to be an emphasis on the run, but both have a really good track record with quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, Philip Montgomery's claim to fame is, that Robert Griffin III guy. He was pretty good, won a Heisman Trophy over at Baylor. And then, Hugh Freeze has gotten more out of his quarterbacks than a lot of people have at this level of college football. So you got to think it's going to be quarterback friendly, but I am interested to see how those two styles merge, especially early in the season.
So, Zach, I'm going to ask you a question I've never asked anybody in my life.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness.
Can I borrow $1,000?
Is that a real cactus over your right shoulder?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We have fake cacti all over my house, and my wife hates them. So I'm looking like 5 or 6 over there. And I don't even like cacti. My wife just hates them, so I keep buying them.
Wow.
Whenever we're at Target,
Yeah,
I sneak them into the shopping cart. She always gives me a look whenever we're checking out. She's handing it to the cashier, and she doesn't know what to do. So it's become a joke, and now I have one back here.
It's too green, and the prickles don't look real.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah. I think that's good analysis, man. I think you nailed that.
Is that a real can of Bush's beans?
It is.
Is that what you're having for lunch?
Hey, is Roger the lab or the golden retriever that's the Bush dog?
No, this is Roger McCreary, who was the Bush's beans guy this year. It was on blank, and the former Tennessee quarterback at media days. And so, yeah, Roger McCreary brought me some Rogers beans at media days last year when it was in Atlanta. So that's what that is.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that doesn't have a born-on date, so you can eat those anytime.
Never go bad.
Should the worst happen. And
that's right.
Since we're picking your shot to death here,
that's what we do.
While we're asking the questions, I see you glancing out the window. I never want to know what's outside of that window. For me, as an Auburn insider, I think you have a place that overlooks the Auburn practice field where you broadcast from, and every time you look out the window, I think you're breaking news for us.
Well, tell us who's closest. I think you've got a pool out there. I don't know if you ever saw the MC Hammer video, Pumps in a Bump, and there's just a bunch of people partying out at the pool.
That one's probably closer. Let's just be honest. I think that one's probably closer. But we can act like football practice is happening right here. I'm okay with that.
In my head, that's what's always happening out there. Oh,
football. Yeah.
Payton Thorne's called the guys together. He's throwing some receipt to receivers at 11:11 today.
Zach's looking out the window at it. All right. Listen, you can follow Zach on Twitter at Z Blackerby. He's with the Locked On Auburn podcast. Does a lot of great work there. They do a lot of great video. But Zac is about to join our family as well. Zac Blackerby and Brad Law of the Auburn Network will be producing 4 days a week a daily show, 25 to 30 minutes, 4 days a week on Auburn football, Auburn athletics, basketball, recruiting, everything that goes on Auburn. It is going to be part of an Auburn channel that we'll have as part of our YouTube. We're going to have an Alabama channel too, but an Auburn channel is part of our YouTube. And Zac and Brad are going to be doing that 4 days a week. So a ton of Auburn content coming from these guys, Zac. And we're very excited to welcome you to part of the family here.
Yeah, I think the world of what you guys do, and been following you guys for a long time, just, back when you guys were doing radio stuff and took this big leap to build this cool thing that y'all have done in a pretty short amount of time. It's pretty incredible. And so, we talked a little bit at SEC Media Days, and glad we could find a way to make this work.
That's right. Yeah. We're going to start it Monday, and we'll let you know where you can find everything and how all this is going to work. But tons of Auburn content coming in that Auburn channel, including Brad and Zac, 4 days a week. So we're really excited about that.
I'm pumped up, too, because Rockstar and I are in the middle of renegotiating our contract, and they said until we worked out Zac's numbers,
that's right,
we couldn't rework Rockstar and my numbers. So that's really good, Zac. I'm glad you're here, and we love Brad as well. So 4 days a week? That's what you're doing 4 days a week for us?
That's what y'all just said, so I guess that's what we're rolling with. Absolutely.
Don't act like we haven't talked about
I knew
that.
he looked surprised when you said 4 days a week.
Always on the same page here.
The last I heard it was 3, so it's 4 days a week. Way to go, Zac. Yeah. Can we interest you in 5?
No, I think 4 is a solid sweet spot. No, seriously, though, I'm excited to do it, and Brad is a pro's pro, and so it's going to be a lot of fun talking about some Auburn sports, and I think it's a good time to be an Auburn fan across a lot of different sports. So we'll help bring more Auburn content to the good folks on the Plains.
All right, up to 4 shows a week from Brad and Zac. I'm going to reword it then. That will start on Monday. Zac, excuse me. We thank you for the time. It is Jim's got me flustered. I'm sorry. He likes to do that. Thank you for the time. I know you're about to head over and talk to the coordinator, so we'll see some of that coming up from you on Twitter and with your coverage at Locked On Auburn.
And by head over, we mean you're going to walk out on your patio and yell down at them. Yeah.
That's right. Gentlemen, thanks, guys. This was fun.
All right. Thank you. Good to talk to you. Somebody in the chat room says, are we losing Zac? No, Zac will continue. All of his duties are locked on. This is just in addition to what he's doing there with us. He was with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Brad Law, part of the Auburn Network, will join him for up to 4 shows per week.